Hi, hi everyone. Welcome to our live. It's great to be here live with you today for the next 20 to 30 minutes. My name is Dania Meira, and I am a founding member of the AI Guild and the Data Lead Director. Welcome to all fluent in data people who are joining us live. If you like, please be active and send the questions for us in the chat, and we will answer them. Today with me is Dr. Tereza Iofciu. She's an experienced speaker in data, product management, and diversity. Having worked as a data science manager, data scientist, data engineer, and product, she's an accredited leader with 15 plus years of experience and validated expertise in data science and machine learning. Currently, she is the head data science coach at neuefische, a tech bootcamp provider based in Germany. Thank you, Tereza, for joining us today.
Thank you, Dania, for inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining. When we start, we like to ask people to share a bit with us and with the audience. How did you get to where you are today? Share a bit about your journey and what motivates you to work in the data field.
I guess a lot of my journey was kind of a mix of opportunity, luck, and kind of saying yes to opportunities, and connected with being at the right place at the right time, I would say. I studied basically computer science in Romania a long time ago, when it seemed to like computer science to be a field for the future. I was good at math, and then I came to Germany to do my Diplomarbeit, and then I stayed to do my PhD in a domain that at that time data science did not exist, but then it was recommender system, user profiling, and stuff like that, search engine. And then I was like, data science actually is like, I just had a PhD in the domain of data science, and then data science was invented, and there I was, and I was like, lucky me. And then I got my first job at Xing, where I remember there were not in 2000, this was 2011, there were really not a lot of data science jobs in Germany. I mean, no data science jobs in Germany. And I remember I applied for senior Perl developer at Xing back then for the content team. Because, I did 3 months of Perl coding during an internship, and I thought, I guess I can apply for senior Perl developer. Like, why not? That's the only job that they have that has anything to do with data. So I applied, and Xing was doing recommender systems back then, and I was like, I knew about recommender systems, and I did not get the job for the Perl knowledge, but I did get it for the data science part. And then I stayed in the data science field. I worked as a data scientist. I worked also as a data engineer. When you get to a company that doesn't have a proper data infrastructure, there is no point in trying to do data science before the data infrastructure gets built. So I started as a data engineer at my taxi/free now. And I work also in product as a product owner for the data science team, because this is also something that didn't used to be so many out there, and it's still a job that needs to be done. And then subsequently ended up leading the team, the data science team that we set up. And now since almost 2 years, I'm at neuefische, teaching other people to be good data scientists that care about the user, the environment, being treated fairly and treating other people fairly. Yeah. So
Cool. Thank you.
I think everybody should be data literate these days, especially with all the charts about COVID and whatnot. And I think it's
Right.
it has bumped the data literacy of the world a little bit the past years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Not only for your professional life, but also for your personal life. It's important to understand some of the data. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah.
Cool. And today we are here to talk a little bit about the lessons learned when hiring and retaining. So this is also the topic that you are going to bring to your keynote session during the Data Lift Summit. So let us talk a little bit about the motivation for you to bring up this topic. So what have you, maybe we can start sharing the challenges that you have faced through your journey, more than 15 years in the field, both as someone that is a candidate looking for jobs, or someone that is on the other side of the table making the decision about hiring data professionals.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges in data science is the fact that the field is new. I mean, it's still new compared to, software engineering and other fields, and there's not real consensus still and what is data science and what is a data scientist supposed to be. So a lot of companies put the label data science, but what the role is in the end is different than what people expect, right? And it also changes. So I think even now many companies say they hire data scientists and they end up wanting machine learning engineers, right? And or they say they hire data scientists, but there's no data platform. And in the end, it's going to be maybe a little bit of analytics, but a lot of analytics engineering. Still, they might all use the same job title, right? And I find it for experienced people who've been around for already 10 years in the field, it's really easy to kind of read between the lines of looking a little bit at the company and looking a little bit at what other people are working in there, where they are in time, when did they hire their first data scientist. It is a little bit easier to kind of understand, given the job description, what they actually want. But for people that are at their first job search, or this is almost like an impossible task. So you hear a lot of stories about people applying to many companies, the interviews, the expectations in the interviews vary drastically for job titles that have kind of the same, description. Some people say, oh, data science job is, I had to do so many SQL queries, or some people say, and then I had to put this in production, all sorts of basically very broad. So, and then there's the domain, right? So, I mean, every company, if you want to do NLP and if you want to do image recognition, there's you need to specialize a little bit in those domains to kind of apply for companies that do that. So it's a little bit tricky to, I think, find a job, especially if you don't really know what you want.
Yes, I can agree to that. And if I remember right, at some point you were also sharing a bit about some research that you did on the job market. So, for one, collecting from the experiences of people, but also just by going on the internet and seeing what kind of job descriptions you can find. Share a little bit with us what you found in your research.
So, I think every time I kind of start looking for, I was like, oh, I need to kind of switch my job, and I'm looking at what's going on LinkedIn, it's and looking at job descriptions, searching for data science, and then looking at job description makes me first feeling is I feel super demotivated immediately. All of the jobs are same thing, and it's more and this is what you're gonna do, and actually they don't even specify what you're gonna do. What is your day at work gonna be like? They're just what we want, right? So and a lot of keywords, right? In the end there's oh yeah, you should be good at everything style. And because who knows, maybe we need it at some point, right? Style. So and there's really few times that I've seen jobs that you are reading, and they're not necessarily for data science, for other domains too. Very few companies, and you read a job and you're like, this makes me really want to work there. They put a lot of effort into writing this job description. They really kind of try to say, this is what your first months of job are going to look like. This is what you can expect in the next month. This is how your team looks like. Really, why do I have to do all this research online when they could just write it down? They have it, right? So then there's a lot of jobs that I think it's only starting now, companies to be aware, larger companies to be aware maybe of the language that is used. So the language matters, and most of the words can be so there's been this research about gendered words, so the words that women respond to versus words that men respond to. And sometimes there are jobs, you read them and you're like totally put off and you don't even know, but subconsciously you're like, they want you to be a rock star, totally on all the time. And like, if I see a job title that says rock star at this, I'm like already like, I'm not going to even continue reading. I'm not sharing. I'm not advertising it, it's, or ninja, all of these words that are like, they're really not collaborative. It doesn't seem that they have a collaborative work environment or that they're fostering growth and, a good culture. So, and it might not even be the case that it is so, right? How can I tell from a job
maybe
if one person wrote it or the whole company reviews the process of the jobs and this is a informed decision to write it like
just
this.
this one person that one person that writes it has to be informed about this.
But it's also like a sign. I can also like take it and read between the lines, like the company doesn't have let's say a agreed upon culture and how to communicate with the outside, right? And am I going to be the person going there and having to fight these battles of changing cultures and stuff? Do I want to have that? I mean, one has to want to be that person, right? And to say, because once you're doing that, you don't get to do 100% your data science job, right? You're going to have to do 30%, I don't know, improving the culture, talking about diversity, which is totally fine if you're, paid for that and you're not. So
it's part of the expectations both on yourself and also on the team or the company that hired you. Yes. And well, I think you have a lot to say on that aspect of diversity and so on, because you were awarded this community award in the Python Foundation. Am I right?
Yeah, that was last year for. So I think I have several layers of free time, like all of us. And so I've been running PyLadies Hamburg since I think already like 3 or 4 years. We started it in Hamburg. And then I'm also part of the diversity and inclusion work group with the PSF, so Python Software Foundation, and also part of the Code of Conduct work group. So I think, and they have this awards, anybody can get nominated. And it's really nice to receive the awards in the end, because it's like you're doing community work and then it's like, okay, somebody notices it, right?
Yes, it's a great recognition of your work, like supporting and being there for the groups that need to be more represented. I was wondering if you have some opinions or insights on why is this kind of issues, especially now if we focus on the different data roles is happening. So you mentioned that there could be something to do related with the company culture, but what else can we maybe bring into this mix?
So I think this is also like part of my talk. So I think I have like several aspects. So one is like the team. The other one is I call it the data age of the company versus the age of the company. So just to give you an idea. So let's say you have a new startup. They just started and they started, okay, we're going to do data-driven everything, from the get-go. So they're going to think about like, okay, we're going to track stuff. How are we going to make it available? And this is already done, when you start working there, and everybody is on the same page with that. Versus you have a company that has been operating for 30 years, even 10 years. And then they say, oh, we now need to do something with data science because everybody's doing data science, So there, the whole discussions have to start now. Everything has to be tracked. It wasn't tracked properly, right? So, so whoever comes in there first, they're not going to do data science, right? And even like starting to kind of teach every layer of the company to start using data for their decision instead of, I have a gut feeling about it. This takes years, right? And it's a good learning experience. I don't say that it's not, right? But so in my talk, what I'm kind of focusing on is to kind of identify what kind of company what is the job, what kind of company you're applying to know what kind of role you are expecting to see, because it is really annoying to start working somewhere and expect one thing and then just get completely different, right? Versus
Yes.
that's what you expect, you know what you get into, and you decide, right? During the job
Yes.
interview, not
Yes,
afterwards.
yes. Before, yeah, exactly. Before you take any offer that might come in the future. Yes, I agree. And I think this is true to both the candidate, but also the company, because nobody wants to go through all that effort of interviewing, I don't know, 3 rounds, and then in the end have someone that is not fitting for what the company needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think that on one hand candidates can do better and also companies can do better? Can you give us some insight there?
So I think on the candidate side, one has to be really, there's a progression to how, like data science is not the first thing that you do, right? So you need data infrastructure. You probably start with data analytics to get like in-house insights, and then you do data science. And so if you're not aware of this progression and then you start saying, oh, we want a data scientist, so you have to yeah, like as a company, be aware of that this is kind of the natural progression of things. And so data scientists are also expensive, right? And it's really a waste of money to hire data scientists when you don't need data scientists yet, or you cannot leverage their work, right? Instead of, because they're not going to be that good at doing what needs to be done, right? And then everybody's going to be frustrated. They're going to be frustrated because they want to do I don't know, modeling and getting data insights and like putting models in production, but then they are actually doing data pipelines in order to even get the data, right? And that takes some time to set up. And maybe a data engineer or a analytics engineer would be more suitable for the job at that moment. So yeah, so I think on that side, companies need to be aware of that progression, and then also maybe start hiring someone that has this idea in mind, and then, or even rent someone, you don't need to hire. If you want, you can say, we need to ramp this up. Maybe we work with a consultancy company to kind of set up get us started, or like investigate where do we need to go from here, right? Because a lot of C-level people kind of sometimes think they know the answer to everything, and then they don't ask for help at the right time. And maybe, I know there's a lot of consultancy that give, like you can just ask, you can pay for like, okay, this is audit our company, this is what we have at the moment, what kind of roles, what kind of people we need, right?
Yes.
So who should we hire? I think also AI Guild did this, right? So this is not a sign of weakness, to ask for help when you need help, right? It's a good investment. On the other side, I think candidates need to basically find out what are all the clues, to read between the lines of all the, like, okay, this is the job description, what is the research that you have to do? I think it's more like a pyramid, right? Like you can research a lot of jobs, then you have the first interviews, this is already taking a little bit more effort, and then the further interviews with the take me home challenges. You can't do 100 interviews.
Yeah.
So you
It's tough.
better filter stuff out as soon as possible. And the idea, this was a little bit in my talk, is like, how do you push to the lowest level the information that you need to gather from your research with jobs, right? So that you don't need to talk to 10 people in the company to answer all the questions. Of course, this is a process that you might lose good companies because they don't advertise themselves well. If you really care about those companies, you can give them feedback and say, hey, look, I would have applied to your job, but this is like what I kind of saw there and really put me off, if you want to. But most of the people, I'm not sure if they do that, but yeah. So I think, yeah. So be like be a detective, a job detective, and then like invest your efforts wisely. That's on the candidate side.
I think for candidates, so if we have any candidates or people looking for jobs at the moment that would like to send any questions here in the chat, please feel free. We have a couple of more minutes, maybe around 10 minutes, then we can answer it. But I was wondering, because this is something that I have heard also before, like, wouldn't this kind of strategy also, you briefly mentioned that give me as a maybe less opportunities or less interviews if I start filtering out the companies? No, wouldn't it be better to just apply to all of them and then start drilling down or just see what happens before I myself take me out in the process?
Yeah, so the research says that. So there's been a research, I think, from LinkedIn or so, where they looked at what men and women do differently. And apparently men tend to apply to more jobs than women. Women do this research. But
Okay.
then women do get more jobs than the men do.
Okay.
So being selective is also a way for you to, so this research pays off in the job interview afterwards, right? Because you can have, you sound very informed about the company, and this is, companies also get a lot of applications and nobody wants to hear someone, so why do you want to work with us? I don't know, I just apply to everything. And and it's really, you got to be a pro at applying for jobs to not sound like that, right? I mean, of course some people are really good at that, like people that have studied theater or improv theater, which I also recommend. It helps with job interviews. But unless you can pretend that you are interested, people can notice that you're not really truly interested and you're just this is 1 out of 100. So I think yeah, so this is one part. And on the other side, as I said, it takes a lot of time to apply. And there are situations, so I've heard of also, like, I think we had someone in the boot camp and she wanted a specific job, like bioinformatics. So then but she was like, the topic is focused, and then she applied to 200 or like 100 or 200 places, right? And she had, but that's like a very focused and narrow field, right? So maybe that is okay, right? Because you care about the domain and you can still have this conversation. But if you say, like, I applied to 100 data science jobs, that sounds like a very broad domain. And just saying, look, I'm interested in data science, that's why I want to work here, that doesn't like put you at the top of the pile.
Yes.
And you want to kind of get to the top of the pile, right? Otherwise.
Yes. Thank you for that. I totally agree with what you just said. The idea is that it's not only you as a candidate choosing a job or a company, but it's also, of course, the company choosing a person to work for them. And nowadays, especially for entry level kind of jobs, they have hundreds of applications. So you need to stand out and be at the top of the pile. And one of the ways to do that is exactly do your research, understand what is it that you want, and figure out, maybe reading between the lines or doing some extra research on the company is the right one for you. I think a lot of the times also candidates could have a bit more of that approach of, I will choose the company that I work for. It's not only the companies that are choosing me, right?
Yeah. And I think especially, so entry levels should usually be jobs that people do not require experience, they just require that some stuff, like, but not actually have the experience. Should and is, that's different, but so if you find those entry level jobs that are actually not like just want to hire a senior and label them as a junior, those will basically really judge for motivation, right? Because that is going to be like, if you are motivated to work at that company and you sound motivated, people will also believe that you can just learn anything as long as you're motivated, right? And that's basically one of the things that you can really polish in the interview process. How do I get motivated about this? Let's do this research. And maybe I find out that there is absolutely no way I can get motivated about this company.
Yeah.
And
so
then
that
that's it,
maybe is, it's already a sign that maybe it's not worth the effort, because I mean, it's better to find out now than find out later that it's not the right place for you.
Yeah, although sometimes, so that's the other side of the coin is people. So one thing that I like I heard and I like saying is like your first job in like a domain or whatnot, you're going to be most likely paid to learn, right? So this is also something that one can try to find out during the job interview process or like during the research. How good is this company at mentoring people? So maybe you don't like the domain of the company, but you know that entry levels there are really treated really well. People, they have a growth pipeline for their employees, and you are going to grow there, right? And that can be also a way to be motivated, right? It's like,
Yes.
I really like your culture, right? But this is again something that you need to research to find that out, because it's something else if you did this research and you already know this and then you have the interview, or you find this out in the interview. It's a nice surprise, but still you're not really prepared to like leverage this surprise, I think.
Mm-hmm. Actually, now at the topic of retaining. So we talked a lot about hiring, but then about retaining data professionals. So one gave is when a company cares about the career progression of someone and gives opportunity to learn, and you can progress in your career. Do you have more ideas to share on the topic of retaining?
Yeah, so I think one of the books I read was from the founder of Zappos, which is like the company that Zalando is a copy, you know, like something with happiness. I have to Delivering Happiness, that's the name of the book. Yeah. So and this so Zappos used to be this company that was like, you know, everybody loved working there. And one of the things that he said was that one should, so the value of the company should not be all the smart people that work there, but it should be the pipelines for growing people. You know, so hire juniors, foster a culture where people teach and mentor other people, you know, because then, yeah. So one thing that they say, like, sure, you can hire a senior, but a senior after 2 years in a job will get bored if nothing changes. And they will leave to the next other company with a senior job. If you want people to have like, if you want to have like longer, and the the retention numbers, I think for data science jobs are not very good on the job market. So the jobs tend to be short, right?
Yes.
If you want to have people stay longer, you need to start with at the junior level and have a progression, right? Because then they can go to mid, they can go to senior, they can go to principal, and then you can have a person stay there for 5-6 years, a person who knows everything, knows, you know, because hiring a new person and like always hiring new people and like having them on board, it takes time, you know, like a person is not going to be, few people are like, they are productive on day one, right? Most of the people need like a couple of months. So I think in this sense, retention is really like important. And then you also have to, but it's not organic, right? You need to create a platform for it. And if as a company you have not started yet with this, then you will learn, as any company has learned so far. First you lose all the good people, and then you realize, this is happening, and then you start building this, but those people probably won't come back. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing a little bit about the lessons learned or about the challenges we see when hiring and retaining data professionals. I think we are already at 30 minutes for today. So I want to say thank you again, Tereza, for joining and for the full chat. My cat has also enjoyed a little bit. And yes, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person here in Berlin in June.
Yeah, thank you again, Dania, for inviting me. And yeah, see you in Berlin.
Bye
In
bye.
June. Ciao, ciao.